And that was President Obama delivering his remarks to a joint session of Congress just a bit ago. And joining us now to give us his thoughts on the president's speech is Democratic Congressman Joe Sestak, who's with us. You know, Congressman Sestak, I'm getting a little frustrated. He said in last week's $1 trillion plus with interest, massive spending bill, he said there were no pet projects in it. We all know that's not true. I have a list of the $410 billion omnibus spending bill. I have a list, I'll start reading them to you if you like, of nothing but part of the 9,000 earmarks. How can you say with a straight face that this is not irresponsible spending when it's full of earmarks? Last week's bill, this week's bill being debated. Explain that to me. You're a Democrat. Help me out.
Absolutely. Sean, first off, you try to name me one in the recovery bill of an earmark. Now, were there 9,000 earmarks in this omnibus bill? Just one moment.
Answer.
There were. Okay. If I could just answer this.
The Salt Harvest Marsh Mouse that gets $30 million. The railway from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. That is a pork project. That is
Sean,
spending.
Those words are absolutely not in the bill, and you know it. You may be reading them off the internet, but those words are not in the bill.
Of course, because you hide it, but we know where the money's going. It's just like, for example,
Sean, those words,
I'll give you another
Sean,
one.
if I could.
All-terrain
wait a minute,
vehicle.
Sean, you're reading off an internet type of thing. You got to read the actual bill, and I've read every word.
You know.
Now, let's talk about the 9,000 earmarks.
Wait a minute. You know and I know that Nancy Pelosi's district for these marshlands to help save the mouse, that's where that money's going. This railway for Harry Reid, these all-terrain vehicle trails, they're in the bill, Congressman. We're spending $1.3 trillion of our kids' money. Why?
Sean, I just don't want to mislead the public. Those words are not in the bill.
But the money's earmarked for it.
No, there are not, Sean.
You sound like Bill Clinton.
No, I'm just telling you what the facts are because I've read every word of the bill.
That is where the money is going. Congressman, be straight with the American people.
Let's get to a bigger and a more important topic, please. Let's talk about the earmarks that you bring into the omnibus bill, which we're going to pass. As you know, when I went to Congress 2 years ago, I voted for pay-as-you-go government, and we actually cut from the year before down to 45% of the previous total amount of money of earmarks. Now, we cut them another 5%. I'd vote in a heartbeat for no earmarks. But let's get to the overall picture of the money. I think I take President Reagan as one of my models back in the 80s, where we had the S&L crisis. And what he did is put 3% of the GDP by federal money into S&L in order to purchase those types of S&Ls to salvage our economy. Now, we're doing a bit more because we're in a much more desperate type of situation.
No. We're not in a more desperate situation. Reagan had 21.5% interest rates. Reagan had double-digit inflation. Reagan had double-digit unemployment. We just lost 10 million new jobs. It was far worse then, and he lowered taxes. Now, Congressman, you've got to be straight with the American people. Are you going to look in that camera where you are right now and tell them there's no reckless earmarks in the omnibus bill this week? There's no reckless earmarks in the bill that was passed last week? No pet projects? Are you going to say that with a straight face?
I will tell you with a straight face that in the recovery bill, there was not one earmark. I will tell you that in this bill, there were earmarks. Do I want to have none? Yes, I'd like to have none. By cutting by over 50%
I don't care if you'd like to have
I think we did a pretty darn good job.
But you passed the bill. Are you going to tell America tonight that the mouse isn't going to get a dime in San Francisco? That project is not going to happen? You're going to tell the American people that's not going to happen?
Sean, I believe that it shouldn't get one because the words aren't even in the bill.
It's in there because it's for the Harvest Marsh Mouse. The money's going to the marsh to save the mouse.
Sean, I can't be an ideologue. I have to be a pragmatic individual. So what I've done is this. I've looked at the models. And what I know from this bill that we have passed, the recovery bill, that if it had not passed, between today and the end of June, 3 million more Americans would have been laid off. And by December, we would have 12 to 13% unemployment. And, Sean, you know 11% marks the beginning of a recession.
Congressman.
Depression. So what we've done is taken very firm, bold action. And, you know, we're going to stop the hemorrhaging of jobs, get the credit going again, and get this economy working.
I don't mind that you support this massive, huge earmark pet project bill, but we've got to have honesty. And I want you cannot tell the American people tonight that there's no earmarks in last week's bill, and you can't dispute that there are now, as of this moment, 9,000 plus earmarks or thereabouts in the omnibus bill, and you can't tell me that's good for the country. That's good for politicians for their power, but it's not good for the country, is it?
Sean, I don't mind having a disagreement on what's in a bill or not, but as far as honesty, for me, let me just repeat again. Those words that you read out are not in the recovery bill.
And you promised the American people.
Are there earmarks? I admit there's earmarks, but remember, we cut them by 45% and I've moved to zero. But remember this. We are in a financial storm.
I got that.
And if we had not intervened like President Reagan had or the Great Depression, we would not be coming out of it strong and bold.
Reagan cut taxes. Morgenthau, the Treasury Secretary of FDR, said all that spending didn't help. But I would rather.
But you know, so did President Obama cut taxes for 95% of all Americans. And President Roosevelt brought unemployment from 27% to 9.5% by 1937. Thanks for having me.
You're a great American. I got a lot of work to do on you, Congressman. We're going to bring you back. And coming up, the president did his best to win over Republicans.